Are you surprised that speaking of the Soviet Union and United States, and speaking of game theory, are you surprised that we haven't destroyed ourselves with nuclear weapons yet? Like that simple formulation of mutually assured destruction, that's a good example of an explanation that perhaps allows us to ask better questions, but it seems to have actually described the reality of why we haven't destroyed ourselves with these ultra powerful weapons. Are you surprised? Do you think the game theoretic explanation is at all accurate there?
I think we will destroy each other with those weapons.
Eventually?
Eventually. Look, it's a very low probability event. So I'm not surprised it hasn't happened yet. I'm a little surprised it came as close as it did. Your general thinking, realizing it might have just been a flock of birds or it wasn't a first strike attack from the USA, we got very lucky on that one. But if you just keep on running the clock on a low probability event, it will happen. And it may not be USA and China, USA and Russia, whatever. It could be the Saudis and Turkey.
And it might not be nuclear weapons. It might be some other destructive
bioweapons. But it simply will happen, is my view. And I've argued at best we have 700 or 800 years, and that's being generous.
At worst, how long we got?
Well, maybe it's
asking
like a
for
Poisson arrival process, right?
Okay.
So tiny probability, could come any time, probably not in your lifetime, but the chance presumably increases the cheaper weapons of mass destruction are.
So the Poisson process description doesn't take in consideration the game theoretic aspect. So another way to consider is repeated games, iterative games. So is there something about us, our human nature, that allows us to fight against probability, reduce, the closer we get to trouble, the more we're able to figure out how to avoid trouble. The same thing is for when you take exams or you go, and take classes. The closer, or paper deadlines, the closer you get to a deadline, the better you start to perform and you get your shit together and actually get stuff done.
I'm really not so negative on human nature. And as an economist, I very much see the gains from cooperation.
Yeah.
But if you just ask, are there outliers in history? Like, was there a Hitler, for instance? Yes. Obviously. And again, you let the clock tick. Another Hitler with nuclear weapons doesn't per se care about his own destruction. It will happen.
So your sense is fundamentally people are good, but
trembling hand equilibrium is what we would call it.
Trembling hand equilibrium?
That the basic logic is for cooperation, which is mostly what we've seen, even between enemies. But every now and then someone does something crazy and you don't know how to react to it. And you can't always beat Hitler. Sometimes Hitler drags you down.
To push back, is it possible that the crazier the person, the less likely they are, and in a way where we're safe? Meaning, like, this is the kind of proposition I had the discussion with my dad as a physicist about this, where he thinks that like if you have a graph, like evil people can't also be geniuses. So this is his defense why evil people will not get control of nuclear weapons, because to be truly evil, but evil meaning sort of, you can argue that not even the evil of Hitler we're talking about, because Hitler had a kind of view of Germany and all those kinds of, he probably deluded himself and the people around him to think that he's actually doing good for the world, similar with Stalin and so on. By evil, I mean more like almost like terrorists, where they want to destroy themselves and the world. Like those people will never be able to be actually skilled enough to deliver that kind of mass scale destruction. So the hope is that it's very unlikely that the kind of evil that would lead to extinctions of humans or mass destruction is so unlikely that we're able to last way longer than 700, 800 years.
I agree. It's very unlikely. In that sense, I accept the argument. But that's why you need to let the clock tick. It's also the best argument for bureaucracy. Yeah. To negotiate a bureaucracy, it actually selects against pure evil because you need to build alliances. So bureaucracy in that regard is great, right? It keeps out the worst apples. But look, put it this way. Could you imagine 35 years from now, the Osama bin Laden of the future has nukes or very bad bioweapons? It seems to me you can.
Yeah.
And Osama was pretty evil. And actually, even he failed, right? But nonetheless, that's what the 700 or 800 years is there for.
And there might be destructive technologies that don't have such a high cost of production or such a high learning curve, like cyber attacks or artificial intelligence, all those kinds of things. So, yeah.
I mean, let me ask you a question. Let's say you could, as an act of will, by spending $1 million, obliterate any city on earth and everyone in it dies. And you'll get caught and you'll be sentenced to death, but you can make it happen just by willing it. How many months does it take before that happens?
So the obvious answer is like very soon. There's probably a good answer for that because you can consider how many millionaires there are, how many you can look at that, right?
Right.
I have a sense that there's just people that have $1 million. I mean, there's a certain amount, but have $1 million, have other interests that will outweigh the interest of destroying an entire city. Like there's a particular,
Sure.
like I mean, maybe that's a hope.
It's why we should be nice to the wealthy too, right?
Yeah, yeah. All that trash talking as Bill Gates, we should stop that because that doesn't inspire the other future Bill Gateses to be nice to the world. That's true. But your sense is the cheaper it gets to destroy the world, the more likely it becomes.
Now, when I say destroy the world, there's a trick in there. I don't think literally every human will die, but it would set back civilization by an extraordinary degree. It's then just hard to predict what comes next.
Yeah.
But a catastrophe where everyone dies, that probably has to be something more like an asteroid or supernova. And those are purely exogenous for the time being, at least.